Or then I forget. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program here. Bless you, Marla. Okay, now it is recording, right? You see that, everybody? Okay, we
Yes.
are still pretty good on time. So that I want to say that by way of background, in terms of the expertise I have, the way I look at LinkedIn, and one of the reasons I market to the say roughly late 50s, 60s, the older Xers and the boomers, is because of course we didn't grow up with all this techno stuff. And how do we even get it? And so many people are intimidated by it, especially LinkedIn, because I mean, whoever hangs out on LinkedIn, really? I mean, like you might hang out on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, but LinkedIn is a place where people just got to go when they have to. So I want to have them feel like they want to and they look forward to time on LinkedIn. All right, so ended my little lecture. So we're going to focus today on posts, articles, LinkedIn newsletter, and engagement, and we'll just zip-de-doo through these without a lot of background and time, but you will have more information in the handout. So let's start with posts. Here is the post I put up about today. All right. Now, some of my posts are longer. You can still see this, right? Excited about presenting, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So you see, here's the link to RSVP. Here's a handful of hashtags. Just really kind of cut to the chase. It doesn't have to be long. A picture. Here's a trick. If you put the picture up, then post it, then you're going to have a big picture rather than just put the meetup link. Then your thumbnail is just a little thumbnail with the name of the meetup event in your picture. So that's a simple post. We can look for others too, just by way of example. Here's one where I was interviewed. This is what I mean about, see how this looks so different? This is more the small thumbnail you have with the link, and here's just a regular picture. But anytime you're interviewed for a podcast or you had the podcast, like you, Laura Jane, you want to be putting this information up on LinkedIn because it's a great way to publicly thank that podcast host and to draw attention to yourself, of course, because, it's starting my life. If you have to really be into Joyce to watch the whole hour-long podcast. Trust me, you can skip through the part about me and go to minute 21, and then it gets into the LinkedIn part. But those are just a couple examples of posting. And they're much more focused than perhaps an article. Let me show you an article now. So an article is where you have more almost like a blog post or like a white paper almost. You go into more depth. Also, I say that it's more, not always, but sort of evergreen in nature. So everything that's in here, this was written by ChatGPT and me, was true in August, is true now. It'll be likely true in 6 months. I mean, or a year, whatever. It certainly will vary a little bit, but it is more of a background piece. And the nice thing about articles, especially if you don't do them that often, I should do mine a little more often. When you go then to look at them on someone's profile, they're not caught up in this whole slew of posts as posts will be if you do tend to post quite a bit. So that's an article. I'll show you in just a minute how you do both of these. And finally, I wanted to show you, I might have to go back one more click, a LinkedIn newsletter. So what is a LinkedIn newsletter? I think I'm going to go back this way. It's essentially a compilation of articles. So if you take your articles on a theme, if you will, on an overarching topic, which in my case is LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn tips and insights. So I don't write about Facebook here. I don't write about good tips for business. No, I only write about LinkedIn. And I started this 2 years ago. By way of background, it took me years and years and years to get to 1,700 people, or roughly 1,650 in my MailChimp newsletter. Within 5 months, I was up to 1,700. Now, I haven't been really actively growing it, but I'm still at 2,500. So now what happens when people connect with me on LinkedIn? LinkedIn encourages them to automatically subscribe, or automatically LinkedIn says subscribe to Joyce's newsletter. Do you want to? They don't have to, but they're offering that up. And when I first launched it 2 years ago, it really pushed it out to a lot of people. So see, they'll call these articles, broadly speaking, editions. So if I'm to click on one of these, you're going to see it looks a lot like that article I just showed you. See, there's the visual, there's the headline, here's some headers, bulleted list. I call a little bit more of a polished look, and more in-depth look too. So that's an article. And then if we're going to look at engagement, Now we have to pick somebody. So I'm just going to pick Mary Gall because she's my business coach. And anytime I get to promo her is a good day. So I scroll down, I look for her activity. So here's her post. There's her newsletter. She doesn't have articles. And I can go in and I can scroll down on these posts here by just going to show all and decide, is there any of these posts that are possibly of interest to my people that are my LinkedIn connections? And I came upon this one, which I won't spend a lot of time on, but just to show it to you, I really got a lot of the time. I was a member of one of her peer advisory boards where you're with, about 5 or 6 other people, meet once a month, you get coaching from Mary, they get coaching, you coach each other. It's a very rewarding time. So I could very easily see, go here, I can find it insightful, or I loved it, or celebrate. Then I go here and make a comment on it, something not just like, oh, I love those boards, but something specific that I got out of the experience. And then I can, this is like a reshare on Facebook. I could repost this piece of hers, and it was now it's going to show up really on my profile essentially. I could even feature it. So that's why I basically want to do this little really overview of that. So now I want to go out of, wait a minute, I promised you something. Up here in home is where you both, I mean, most of you already know this, but you go up here to start your post. Here's where you add your image, your picture, what some kind of image. It's very important to do that. And then you also can set a schedule. Like that post I did about Seb Fry and that podcast, I actually created that post on Sunday night and I scheduled to go out 7:30 a.m. Monday morning. So I wouldn't have to worry about it, Monday morning. There it was. I went and looked at it though and tweaked it a little bit. So here is where that scheduling option is. And you, of course, can put in links and, you can put emojis in. There's lots of things. Now, if you want to write that longer piece, write an article. See, this is where you fill in the image. Here's your title. And then I usually compose the text of it in a Word document or a Google Doc, whatever you tend to use. And then take that and repurpose it a bit. This is where chat comes in, of course, or whatever AI tool you use to help you reconfigure what you had from your other place where you have the material. I rarely will put together an edition or article just from scratch. But sometimes I do lately with ChatGPT helps me. Then here's where you get those headers that we saw earlier, bold, italics, the bulleted list, numbered list, links to other places on the internet or other maybe articles I've had. If you have something earlier you wrote, images, and then this is where you decide, well, if you, how do we get here? I think just a regular article. So here you can just see, am I going to do this as an individual article? See this here? Individual article through me, Joyce. Am I going to do an individual article through my newsletter? Am I going to do it as my company page publishing an article? Or that's a different company page I help to manage. So see, you have these options. And then once you're done, you click on next and you do a very short post to set up your article. Now, manage is this is where, watch carefully, if you don't have a newsletter yet and you're interested in getting one, create newsletter. Then you decide, well, first off, you have to have a title, there's character limitations, a short description, kind of like a tagline. And then here, how often do you want to do it? Monthly is the most I can manage. I have seen people do it weekly, whatever you can pull together. The image, sometimes people will use a little headshot. I use a variation of my graphic, my logo, and then see that's where LinkedIn says we're going to the first edition. We'll just push that baby out. So it's not that hard to do. It's more, do you have the commitment, going back to being consistent, to be able to, even with the help of AI, to commit to putting that out, say, every month or every week or whatever. But I do feel that LinkedIn newsletters are great for your professionalism, your credibility. Even if you've been in the field, people like Steve and many of you for many, many, many years, that's still good because you're in a crowded space. It's still good to have a way to really stand out. So now I'll have to be good on time. I got to make sure I've got there it is. Yeah, I'm going to pull that up. Okay, back to my sharing. This is for me unusual because I don't normally go back and forth like this. Okay, so let's see if I can. Now you can see the slide deck, right?
Yep.
Everybody see it? Okay, cool. So we're going to slideshow from the beginning. So here we can sort of just, this is a summary of what I just went through. I didn't talk about calls to action, but that is very important. Design for engagement, one clear idea. Longer form, something more educational, reflective, searchable, all that, and the credibility. And then these groupings of articles called, they're termed editions. And I just went over all that too. So next we have engaging finally. We would that with Mary Gall. If you want to find their activity, click on show all, pick posts probably, or if there's something else there like articles or videos, you can share those and just all those tips I just showed you. So now we're to the heart of the program, which is ChatGPT. Now, I can't really see all of you for a show of hands, but perhaps as this is a good time for you to put in which AI tool you are using. You may be using more than one. And in the chat, put it in the chat if you don't mind. And then as we go along, even put in some suggestions that come to mind. If you have tips, I see I won't be seeing the chat, so it won't distract me. But I really, really love to get your own usage experience. Here's the deal. Haven't we all experienced writer's block in some way where you think, oh my gosh, it's the time for my newsletter. What am I going to use for that beginning article? What am I going to use for my informative, the one that's supposed to be all about me and Joyce, and I went to see the grandchild or whatever. But this one I decided for my most recent newsletter to go to Crystal and talk about the refreshed website. Go Crystal, OMG. So that sometimes I'll put a business one in there if I'm feeling excited about it. And then I always put in my meetups, like when Marla spoke, we had the PR for her on that in my newsletter. But sometimes I'm just like stumped, or even for a post, and I think, oh, I think I should go to chat. Or even for one of the bullets on here, I thought, ooh, I need some help from chat for just a little bitty part. So you feed things into chat, right? I mean, it's your life, right? It's your experience, your opinions. Chat may have opinions, but they may not be your opinions. So put in the content, really the overarching topics you want to cover. And where I have found, and we'll have questions and comments here at the end, that ChatGPT to be especially helpful is when I'm muddled, when I have a few things, and maybe even have something, a draft written, and I give it to ChatGPT and say, oh, this needs to be better organized. I want to have shorter points for my bullets. Help me, please. So it's a shape. This was all of this is mostly from chat. I'll tell you that very transparently. It gives me that way of organizing and shaping the ideas. And when you have a helper like there available 24/7, free, except I do pay $20 a month because I think that helps me, makes it more available. Oh my gosh, I'm more apt to go ahead and create content. Here are some specific things. Again, these came from chat, ideas for using your chat. So say I want to talk to my audience. Who is my audience? Let's start there. Women who own a business between roughly 55 and say 80. See that? So late 50s, 60s, 70s. That's a target audience of mine. And that's a service business. They've been with their business typically at least 1 or 2 years or longer, but they're really stumped about LinkedIn. So perhaps I want to have some posts about why even use LinkedIn. Why does business owners, women, older, I don't like the phrase of a certain age, that sounds bad to me, but people of that age group. So it could come up with some topics. What are some questions that ChatGPT thinks that ideal audience is asking? Like, what are the frequently asked questions? I've made a whole series of LinkedIn videos to help address questions that I know I get from clients and speaking engagements. And the third bullet is very kind of meta. I'll say, what prompts does chat think I should give to it, just in general? Like, okay, you didn't ask me about this or that or whatever. So I thought that was cool. And here's another idea. You have a blog post on something. How can you splice it, dice it up to get link posts out of it? That's a good use of your AI. You're doing a presentation like I'm doing right now. Then that's another way to get material to make into LinkedIn posts. I'm going to again stick with LinkedIn for these examples. Maybe you have a client success story, maybe not just that one client, not to reveal an identity. Maybe it's 2 or 3 similar clients, and you want to tell that story in some ways, and you could break that into posts or whatever articles. Maybe an article would be better for that, or even edition of a newsletter if you're publishing a newsletter. Now, I talked before about my teacher-friendly teacher. persona. So I want to come across that way, generally speaking. Well, maybe in a particular post or article or edition, I got a little carried away. I got a little hypey. I got a little salesy. So I take this to my AI and say, oh, tone this down. All right. This is a little over the top. I want to go back to my friendly teacher voice. So then they can help you with that because they remember it, whatever. Oh, here's my little personal story on this. I don't know, it must have been 6 months or a year ago. I decided to call my chat Athena. You know, a lot of people have names for this. I know it's kind of like naming your car or something, but I like Athena because the goddess Athena, you might have heard of her, the daughter of Zeus. And you know what? You never hear about Mr. Athena or that she had kids or anything. Athena was it, a woman on her own or a goddess on her own. And the mortals would turn to her for advice, for strategies, wisdom. She was a goddess of the city, as opposed to Artemis, who was out there in the woods causing trouble, disruptor, and for good reason, right? But my sister was more like that. She was a sociology major. I was an English major. I would write letters to the editor during the Vietnam War. She'd march in the streets. So I tell you all that. It makes it fun for me to think of I know it's not a person, but to personify it. It's cool. So we talked about that. We're almost done here. So the comments. It's easy, isn't it? To say, "Oh, what a good idea," or "You earned that award. You're wonderful." This is a comment on a post. But let's say you want to have it be more you, something specific. You wouldn't be commenting if you didn't know that person well enough to leave a comment on a LinkedIn post. So take that post, put it into ChatGPT or your AI tool, and say, "I'd like to have a post that says, or a comment that says kind of this A, B, or C, whatever it is." And then check and turn that back to a comment. And maybe the comments end up being so interesting, you think heck, I could make that into a post. So interesting way to think about repurposing. And as I wrap up this part, remember, this is goes without saying, it's your piece. Don't rely too much on chat GPT, AI tools in general, where you just say, I'm just going to plug this in a chat and they'll write it and they'll let it go. Not a good idea. I had a woman the other day say, I can always tell when that person's using a lot of AI tools. And that's another one. If you see that, what are the flags for you? Is it those long hashtag thing that chat likes to use, or certain words they put into a lot of the writing? I'm curious to see what you're experiencing. Again, put it in the chat. So read it out loud, edit it, make sure there's enough personal examples so they can tell it was written by a real person, not only by AI. And of course, if it doesn't sound like you, if you can't figure out a way to edit, just don't post it because it's your content always. So this is a good point to stop because we have what time is it? Oh, we have lots of time. Great. For questions, comments, because I figured most people I know, especially James Lajoie, who was an early adopter, have really been using AI tools quite a bit. I'm not presuming you all do, but I'd like to hear your observations and not even just with LinkedIn posts and other ways that you like to use your AI tools. You can just raise your hand virtually or I can see everybody here. Just raise it like that.
You mind if I go, Joyce?
No, not at all. Take it away, Crystal.
I always like to start any kind of content project that I'm doing by taking actual human written content from the person and loading it in and saying, this is an example of the voice that is being used and it needs to be replicated. I think that's a quick, easy way to start.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And by the way, when Crystal and I worked on that website, we each turned to chat. She'd send me a variation of what I'd asked her for some changes. And before I'd write back to her, I'd ask ChatGPT, well, what do you think? So it was very collaborative that way. Other ways, James, maybe I'll just call on you, feel like the teacher. You in the back, speak up.
Yeah, a little bit of my experience. So I've been doing AI modeling and prompt engineering basically at a basic level, not a developer. One thing I've learned with AI is you have to be very specific of what you do not want it to do. So when you're typing in prompts, I kind of liked what Crystal said, where take something already done by a human, an idea, an aspect of things, put it in the chat, but then specify what you want it to do, and then also specify what you don't want it to do. What we've learned with the AI modeling, it's AI will give you basic yes or no answers. Where it gets confused and starts ghosting and then gives you anything is when you get complex with it. And it's pretty good about even
Oh,
confusing you on the output. When you put a complex question in there, it'll give you some complex answer and be like, yes, this is good, when not really. So the biggest thing we found is specify what you do not want to do. Don't make things up. Do not add anything to it. Do not pull any information anywhere else except for the sources I've given you. Putting in those prompts definitely make a huge difference, at least with what I do with strategies and stuff like that, because a lot of the answers you're looking for. So that's my take on it.
which I know I saw a really great piece you wrote once, I think as a either an article or maybe an edition of a newsletter, in which you differentiated amongst the AI tools. Would you take a minute and talk about that a little bit? Like where ChatGPT is strong or where Claude is better?
Yeah, I have to look at that article if you want to come back around to that. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
remember
yeah,
exactly at the
somebody else.
top of
Yeah,
my
but you know
head.
what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. If you go back and look in
Yes.
the articles, yeah. So other people just chime in, feel free while James looking that up.
And to James's point, this is Michelle, is that you can also tell it how you want to feel. You want it to be warm or you want it to be inviting, specific. So if you say that, then it'll give you a more targeted response.
Good point.
And I would just say that AI is constantly changing. And right now, there's some big wars between the different AI companies that are making major changes in how we can use AI. I put in the chat that February 13th, that ChatGPT retired their best model. And what they're doing now is they're making their models so that they think faster, but not but worse. They're not using as much
Mm.
intelligence, and it's really a huge difference in just the past month or so. And you can't go back and use the old models. They won't let you. And I'd say Claude is very similar to ChatGPT, and Grok and Gemini are probably the best. And one of the reasons they're not struggling as much is because they have big companies around them, right? Gemini is Google. Google is humongous. And Grok is, with X. I mean, that's that's there's a lot of money, a lot to that company. Whereas, OpenAI and ChatGPT, they were the originators, but they're not the big companies that can do all kinds of things and have more leeway with what they can do. They're also
What
trying
about
to,
Perplexity? Is that independent or is that part of a larger company? Did
um,
Deep mention
I
that? Maybe you
think,
don't know.
yeah,
What's
I think it's independent, but I'm not
Mhm.
100% sure. James might know
Steve,
that
you brought
better.
that up, right? Perplexity, do you know any, is there a larger company behind that? I don't know if you heard me, but I did see that. Well, James, did you find your article?
I did. And to Marla's point, all this is fluid. So everything changes. People get different experiences. What I'll post my article on here, you guys can read it. But what I have found, and it doesn't go against even what Marla's saying, Chat GPT is kind of like a general workforce. I use that for everything. Writing, structuring ideas, drafts, emails. Claude is better when you want something more thoughtful, but I've noticed it's limited in terms of the information it will give you. I use Claude to review like legal docs or contracts or everything because it's less likely to make things up. Gemini, very creative. Actually, Gemini came with Google just put something out called Banana Pro. It's a weird name, but Banana Pro is a new image creator that does really well. It's actually integrated in their Google Ads suite, which we use for any Google ads that we put out. It does really well. So if you want to create a picture based off a prompt, and then Perplexity, haven't looked more into it. My experience is basically like Google, except it doesn't give you like 12 links and seven different ads when you're looking up things. But like I said, everybody's going to get a different experience because things change. And then Marla, to your point with the models, I know when ChatGPT changed off their models to be fast, they actually offer, I don't know if it's on the paid version, I have the paid version. They offer on the drop down in the chat box a deep research model. In the paid version, you get 7 deep research tokens, and I've used it to research businesses in terms of buying. It'll go through tons of links and everything, but it gives you a lot more information. It kind of replaces the old model where it would take 5, 10 minutes to think. Because right now, that 5.1, it'll give you answers within seconds. So I don't know a lot of the difference in terms of the old model versus the new, but I noticed with ChatGPT, they're offering different types of searches. So when you're in that chat box, I might be able to share my screen. In the bottom left corner, hit that drop down. You can also integrate it with a lot of the software you already have. So I use keyword research off SpyFu and SEMrush. You can now look at that in ChatGPT along with all the other
Oh,
research.
interesting.
Um, Marla mentioned in her posting that she's not on X. I'm wondering, given all we're talking about, if there's a reason that you're not.
Mostly political reason.
Oh, okay, understand. Uh, uh, Lawyers are using this, of course, uh, a variety of different programs and such. And some are finding themselves in ethical quandaries where the briefs or even the research that they're finding to put into the briefs is creating a fair amount of hallucinations, I think it would be fair to say, and coming up with things that are getting not just them, but their clients in trouble. Just spoke this morning with somebody who had filed a complaint against an attorney on the other side based upon the fact that they had clearly done nothing but AI research and writing and submitted it to the court. So something we need to
Wow.
be very careful about, of course.
Wow. Gosh. Sobering.
With every model, yeah, you have to try and use more than one resource. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey Russell, just to throw in there, my lawyer that I use for our team, he found a specific AI that helps within legal terms. And some of these AIs, like I work with the school system, they use one called Magic School. And
Hmm.
these AIs are built with guidelines specific to that industry when there's like when we're working with children and whatnot. He found one specifically for lawyers, paralegals, everything like that. If you give me your email, I'll shoot you over once I ask him what it was. I can send it over to you. That might be one to look at because that was a problem he was having using ChatGPT and Gemini all the time.
Right. It is. My information should be in the chat, but if you'd like, I can either call or send it to you directly. But yeah, law has actually, in terms of technology, as behind the eight ball as many attorneys are, many attorneys and law firms. Uh, the businesses that serve the legal community have been very forward thinking in their use of AI uh, and adopted it early on. I was working with someone, goodness, 3 years ago who was really putting this stuff together. So, yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. And there are many that are tailored to law that don't incorporate a lot of the things that we find in these others. I'll call them the more general ones that we're
Mhm.
talking about here. But yeah, I'm always open and looking. So
Cool. Hey, I wanted to call on Steve because you did mention several types. How are you using AI, like with your recruiting for mortgage people, or any thoughts on this? Oh, you're muted, Steve.
Trying to better understand how to use landing pages so that reports that I'm creating, uh, that a prospective client can actually click a link, get my report, and I can have a record of that for future use to put in my CRM. So I am primarily the last couple of days, I got a lot of reports or a lot of information from ChatGPT. and just categorizing that. And I'm going to print it out and make my own little cliff notes on that. A couple of the others that I've used, Perplexity and a Discord group that I'm in for investing. Some of the other members have used both Grok and Perplexity, so I've explored them as well. And a lot of times they're a backup because sometimes it's good to get a second opinion. So that's what I'm at.
Mm. So do you happen to know, is Perplexity more independent or is it part of a larger company?
I do not know
Okay,
who they're backed by.
that's okay. Laura Jen, I'm glad you raised your hand because I wanted to hear from you. We were getting close to the end of the time. Go for it, lady.
I use ChatGPT like my coworker.
Hmm.
I'm sitting here at my desk, I'm working away, and I have a question, and I go ask it, "What is this?" And I get the answer, and I just go back to work. It's with me all day long. And it's just that voice of reason when I am stumped or I can't find something. Like I was trying to um, change something. It's like, how do you do this? And I get the answer. So I'm not sitting here spinning my wheels and tinkering around trying to find stuff. I get it. Now, is it always right? No, sometimes I have to tinker around and find it anyway. But I was moving all of my Calendly stuff from one owner to another and what's the fastest way to do this? He was wrong. I found a faster way, but it's like,
Hmm.
that's what I get more ideas when I'm seeing options, look here and here. Okay, I'll
Hmm.
try that. And so it just really helps me get through my day. I call it my
Interesting.
water cooler talk. And mine's called Alan, and it's
Mhm.
spelled with a capital A, L, a capital I, and an N. So it's,
Oh,
hey,
how
Alan.
cute. Do you find you go to Google less than now that
Oh,
you use?
I don't even like Google anymore now that they put the AI search. It used to be
Mm,
where I'd go to look for companies and people and stuff. And now it just gives me what I get from ChatGPT. So I just say, forget this.
mm,
So,
interesting.
I get really frustrated at the Google search now because I can't put in a URL in the address line and it not give me an AI response.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like,
true. It's all pretty
go
much
away.
programmed. Yeah, I was recently getting a talk in my Toastmasters club, and we have a lot of people, and how old you are probably, but I know James is in his 30s, so they are 20s and 30s, mostly early 40s in my club. And there was something I was wanting to get information about the concept of maybe it was mentoring. I can't quite remember the details, but I went into Google and it felt so out of date. It felt like so limited. And I go to ChatGPT and ask the exact same question, and it was so much more expansive, so many more ideas on at least that particular topic. And I mentioned that at my club when I talked about it. And I don't talk about AI every single meeting, but I did tell him once how I broke up with my chiropractor by getting an ideas for a subject line from ChatGPT, and they still talk about that. I mean, these here, I'm 77 years old, and these youngers, they just got a kick out of me and how I really have adapted, at least to a degree, with AI. So, how about one more person? Because I do want to make sure before we wrap up, I promote our next speaker for April. Anybody else want to chime in? Rebecca Parley that hasn't already. But anyway, let me just go to that so I don't forget. And I'll put it in here, put it in the chat. So, and I also put it in the email I'll send to all of you. So there is the awesome Brienne. For those of you here in January, she talked about Facebook. And Brienne's coming back for return engagement, talking about Instagram, how to stay visible without posting every day. And I'm really looking forward to this because I just kind of stalk on Instagram personally. That's the only way I know about my niece in Brooklyn is what she's up to. She's not anywhere else except that I'm on, except for Instagram. So I'm very interested to see Brienne's approach. Brienne actually owns a company with virtual assistants, and helps match up business people with virtual assistants. And she's very smart when it comes to social media. And she's in a networking group that I'm in. So otherwise, I'm so glad I was able to end, with a fair amount of time for interaction, questions, commentary. That was my plan because I would be very surprised if I hadn't gotten, the depth and breadth of commentary that people offered. So it's one of the reasons I love this meetup so much is because of who comes and what they bring to the table. And it's of course different every single meeting. Somebody might just come one time and not ever come back. Some people are regulars, like Marla's a regular, James is, Crystal sometimes is. So it's been really fascinating to see the evolution of the meetup, which was once upon a time in person in a suburb here of Denver, but with Zoom, with COVID, we went on Zoom and never left because we can have presenters from anywhere. And people come from Montreal or wherever, they come from all over. So yeah, I guess I'm doing this presentation in several other settings. So let me know if you have a place where you'd like me to come and do it either virtually or in person. I'm actually speaking at the West Metro Chamber of Commerce, where Crystal and I are both members for the women in business. So I'm excited about that opportunity to do it in person with, like 40 people usually come to those, something like that. So it's been a good ride for me to kind of combine my LinkedIn info with AI. Well, thanks so much to everybody, and come next time if you can. And I think that's all I have, unless there's any other thoughts.
Joyce, thank you very
Yes.
much. As always, I wanted to see if you're going to include the chat in what you send.
Yes, absolutely. The chat is
Terrific.
coming. So here's what I send with the emails. I take the recording that will wrap up here in a minute. So I take the recording, I turn it into a video on YouTube, put it in a playlist for Simplify Your Social Media. So that's one thing I send. I send my slide deck in the form of the PDF, and I send the saved chat. Yeah, those go to everybody who's here and anybody else who wanted to be here but had a conflict of some kind and couldn't come. So thanks
Wonderful.
for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
well, you guys
Thank
have
you.
a good rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Oops, what am I gonna do this? Get out of here. End the meeting.